Welcome everyone to the Dreambuildrs podcast. Today we have a very special guest and I've been looking forward to this interview for a while already. And I'm very excited to introduce to you Misha Kouzeh. Now Misha is a friend of mine and she's also a TEDx speaker, consultant and lecturer at the UCLA Extension with expertise in digital marketing, social impact and sustainability across 3 continents. She was born and raised in the Netherlands. She took a leap of faith to pursue her Californian dream and found her true purpose. For the past decade, she has worked with organizations such as Coca-Cola, Unilever, the United Nations World Health Organization, as well as Cal State universities and various nutrition technology companies to leverage the power of marketing, social impact, and education to drive positive change. Misha, thank you so much for coming on the Dreambuildrs podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Jochem. It's a great opportunity to reconnect again after all these years, and I'm looking forward to sharing my experience with your audience today.
Yeah, absolutely, because you already mentioned it. There is, of course, a reason why I've been so much looking forward to interview you. And one of the first reasons is, of course, for many people that perhaps don't know, is that we worked for the same company at the same department like 6 or 7 years back, Unilever Supply Chain Finance Services. And it was, good old times, super young and dynamic and international environment. But there's of course much more than that. You have an extremely powerful story that I believe many people should know about. I think it's very inspiring. And you basically left your corporate job, left everything behind in the Netherlands, your house, to start something completely new in LA, in California. And to me, that's a very bold move. And not only that, you build up your entire network there, and now you're a catalyst to drive positive change. And I think that's super inspiring. And of course, I would love to talk with you about how you took that leap. And of course, what you can teach us about, finding your purpose and really living it out. So I would love to start first of all with your backstory, and kind of as a build up to how you made that change from being in corporate environment to living your dream and start doing it. So take us back there.
I appreciate this kind introduction. It's again a privilege to be here. I have many fond memories of our time working together. So born and raised in the Netherlands, let's start there. I've been blessed with access to high quality education. So I completed my bachelor's in international business administration at Erasmus University. And then I went ahead and pursued 2 masters in marketing and nutrition. So over the years, I've really had this amazing opportunity to learn from some of the greatest professors, business professionals, and mentors. So you may wonder how a girl from the Netherlands riding her bike in the rain ended up in a city like Los Angeles. Growing up, my parents, my sister, and I used to spend our summers visiting relatives in California. And that was a wonderful experience. It always stuck with me. And then several years ago, I decided to take that leap of faith to pursue my Californian dream in Los Angeles. After arriving in LA, I started asking people the question, if you could change one thing in the world, what would it be? And this is how my focus on social impact and sustainability came to life, and my mission to empower others in their education, in their careers, and really help them achieve what they define as success to them.
I love that question, when you said, like, if there's one thing in the world what you would like to change, what would it be? I think we will touch upon that later in this interview when we're starting to talk about purpose and so on. But first of all, I would love to know, and I think like for many people who are right now in corporate, and even I felt that way when I was still working in corporate, it's like, how do you make such a change, like such a change, right? I mean, sometimes it's so difficult, like you want to pursue your dream or you want to do something new, and perhaps you're like afraid of the unknown, or you think like, I'm never able to make it, or, that's never going to work out for me. How did you take that leap of faith? Like, take us through your journey.
Yes, so as you mentioned, we were living the dream, working a corporate job at a purpose-driven company. So at Unilever, I had the chance to meet the former CEO, Paul Polman, He's a great visionary for a world in which businesses are a force for good. So I met him during a town hall, and I was working with great colleagues and a great team with this wonderful community of family and friends. So the thought of being far away from my loved ones, including my parents, my sister, my friends, and the life that I had known was just really daunting. However, I've always had a growth mindset, and I knew my destination was elsewhere in a tech hub like Los Angeles. So the
Mhm.
first step I took is starting to research study programs in the City of Angels. That's when I encountered the UCLA Extension program. And this program really focuses on the lifelong learning journey for career professionals who either want to advance their job or make a career switch. So I was in the Netherlands, still working my job, and then I decided to enroll in the program. It was a very hard emotional decision, obviously. A lot of thought went into it. Um, I informed my employer about my decision to resign and move to the other side of the world, not knowing what was waiting for me in Los Angeles. Initially, I thought it may be a 1-year program where I go pick up some skills and then decide where to go from there, right?
Yeah.
So my manager at the time found it hard to believe I was willing to take this risk. And I definitely experienced some backlash, but none of my close family members and friends were surprised about the decision. It was something I had talked about ever since I was young. And then when I enrolled in the program and decided to take the leap of faith, it wasn't until I actually arrived in LA that the reality really kicked in. So when I bought my one-way ticket from Amsterdam to LA, I wasn't sure what was happening. Of course, before I arrived in LA, I had done my research, but I had an entirely different picture in my mind of what the city would be like, what my journey would look like, and frankly, how the job market would be.
Mhm. Wow. This is such a daring and bold step from you. And like, I'm just thinking like, how did you make that decision? Like, did you just think like one day, okay, now I'm going for it, or did one day
Yes.
the brick fell in your hand and you were like, now I'm going to do it? What was that decision process like?
Yes, I started really looking at a lot of inspirational speakers who talk about finding their purpose and living a dream life that gives them the fulfillment they want in their careers. And I was really enjoying the dynamic in the company and the corporate job that I had. However, I felt there was more I could contribute to the world.
Hmm.
And when I started tapping into this fulfillment and this desire to make a change, I started questioning all of my current decisions up until then.
Oh, wow.
And that moment was very um, mind blowing. And in a way, it was thing, the moment that catalyzed all of these changes. I looked at my life, I looked at, the age, and people were getting married, they were having kids, and everyone's life was progressing in this very constant manner.
Yeah.
So my question became, if I really want to take this leap of faith and move to Los Angeles, when am I going to do it? Because I've gone through my education, I'm working this job, I've been working for several years, and when is the time? I started volunteering outside of my job, working with several nonprofit organizations, and I really started feeling very fulfilled. I felt I was making a difference. I felt that there's so many issues in the world that need our attention. And that was when the light bulb moment went off, and I figured if there's one thing I need to do to get out of my comfort zone,
Hmm.
it should be now, because I was blessed, and I am still blessed with a wonderful family, wonderful support system. And moving to LA and making that, as you describe it, bold move allowed me to grow in ways that I didn't think were possible. So, too many times the focus of our society is on quick wins. We
Hmm.
create this Instagrammable life. It has to be picture perfect. And less people talk about the years of commitment, the grind, the education, and even the emotional intelligence to learn skills and start branding yourself. So I think diving into the actual what is my purpose question really triggered this sequence of events.
Wow, amazing. I loved a lot of things what you said in there. But so I just want to, before we talk about that, I just want to understand. So then you arrive in LA, you arrive in California, you sign up for a study program. That's amazing. So you knew kind of what you were going to do. You had kind of a set out plan. But then what's next? How are you going to build that all up? How do you make your life there basically a success if you um, start basically from scratch, right? How do you make that step? Because often when we make a new change in our lives, like everything feels great in the first couple of months, right? You're like, yes, going
Yeah.
for it. And then we often fall in this kind of transition zone where everything feels kind of weird or like ambiguous territory. So what were for you the success factors to, or the key factors to make your change a success and start building your network and do what you're doing now?
Right, that's a great question. So, and a lot to dissect, obviously. So, I'm sure everyone who's listening to your podcast right now has been in situations that are outside of their comfort zone. So, dealing with unfamiliar situations, handling the curveballs thrown at them while juggling different challenges. And it's no small feat. So, the biggest change for me when I moved to LA was that I had a network and support system of exactly 0 people.
Hmm.
So imagine the situation where you pack up your bags and move to a city where you don't know anyone, while your number one resource in a city like LA is actually your network. So I know, Jochem, you may relate to this as you've moved across the world quite a bit yourself, but building a network at an adult age is
Hmm.
very different than when you're in high school or in university or even working a corporate job where you interact with tens or hundreds of like-minded professionals. So there was this major barrier that was really hindering me from focusing on my mission. So my first step was complete the study program, get as much as I can out of that in terms of networking and branding.
Hmm.
There were a lot of opportunities within the program to meet guest speakers, find internships, but I had my goal set. It was complete the study program, find an internship, find a job, and start building my career, because I figured if I left everything I know behind and I took this risk, I better make it worth it. So I gave it my 200%. And that's one of the things I encourage everyone to do. When you make a decision, make sure you give it your all so you know you've tried. And if things don't work out the way you had planned, that's great. You can always pivot, but at least you know you gave it your all. So when I was in LA and in that program, even, I soon learned that in a competitive environment like LA, there's no room for error. So first impression matters, and you need to keep grinding to achieve your goals. So every time I had an opportunity to interact with guest speakers, instructors, it was another opportunity for me to sell myself and tell my story. And that was one of the most challenging things growing up in a different environment, to be able to create that story, create that narrative, talk about your achievements, and really do that personal branding piece. Another thing, obviously, that happened was that you get used to hearing the word no. So, as an international student, you get a lot of no's. Every no you hear is another opportunity to get closer to a yes, because it gives you the information you need to move forward. But when I was in that program, I realized that I had ways to volunteer, I had ways to get to know people, and as you mentioned, you start from scratch. Sometimes I even say you start below 0, because you already have credentials and work experience under your belt, but you've not made a name for yourself in this new community. So I connected with my instructors in the program. There was a guest speaker that came in and had her own agency and talked about digital marketing. And during her lecture, I started tweeting about her guest lecture and taking notes about, the key points in digital marketing and how to succeed. And that particular action
Hmm.
led her to seeing my commitment to her field, her agency, and frankly, although I don't encourage my own students to use social media while in class, it really helped me get my first internship. And my marketing instructor at the time was amazing. He believed in me from the get-go. So one of the other factors, as we're peeling this, how to create your success story, is connecting with a mentor who
Hmm.
believes in you It takes only one mentor to get the ball rolling. And my recommendation is always to take advice from people who've walked your path and whose careers you admire. So not just advice from people who quote unquote care about you on a personal level. You really need someone who's done the exact same professional, has committed to the exact same professional journey. So for example, if you decide to start your own business, you should speak with an entrepreneur that built their business from the ground up. Or if you want to become a lecturer, you should connect with someone who's been in the education space in your field. So I hope that covers some of the different layers that I experienced.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think the last part is very, very, very useful. I think for any one of us is to, to do those kind of things and really immerse yourself with those people that are really inspiring for you. So I think that's a very, very good point. And I would love to go back to the question that you asked in the beginning of the interview, if you could change one thing in the world, what would it be? And I would like to ask the question to you because you also have a vision about that now that you are a lecturer and you have been talking on TEDx as well. So how would that world look for you if you would change one thing?
Right. I love that you're asking me that question because I'm usually the one asking it. So if I could change one thing, it's to make this world a healthier place. So what do I mean by healthier? It's the health of people, the health of communities, the health of our planet. And that's where social impact really comes in for me. And I've had this amazing opportunity of empowering others to do so. But Jochem, the research shows that the majority of millennials in the workplace want to feel meaning and purpose in their life. And 94% report that they want to use their skills to benefit a cause. And that's really where I feel my role as an educator comes in. And I've seen 65% of Gen Z wanting to personally contribute to creating something that's world changing. So if I can change one thing in the world, it's to leave a healthier world behind. And within that, my mission is really to empower others to be a force for good, to be the change, and to make an impact and build, their dream life, as the name of your podcast refers to.
I love that what you just said, like, because so many, like, for so many of us, like, finding meaning, finding purpose, we all kind of want it. And what you said, like, how much percent was it? 94% want to use their skill for a specific cause, right? 94% of them want to do that. But then often it's like, okay, so how can I find that, right? What is that next step? How can I really find that meaning? So I'd love to ask you, perhaps, how did you find your purpose on your way? And how perhaps you can teach us a little bit about your findings.
Yes, that's a wonderful question. So I think the first step is really understanding the definition of purpose and impact. So when we talk about purpose, it's about your why. What change would you like to see in the world? Why would you like to change certain things? And we see more than ever, our world is facing an incredibly tough reality. We're dealing with a global pandemic, hunger, obesity, social injustice, inequality, poverty, climate change. And when you start thinking about all these events occurring in the world, each and every one of us, no matter how disconnected we are from certain issues, can find and identify one problem and one challenge they wish they could solve. So whether it, improves the lives of individuals around them, families, communities, or the environment, there is always something lying deeper, right? So when we talk about the definition of purpose and we talk about social impact, which is essentially a positive change that addresses a challenge, we start digging more into the mechanism and the underlying feelings. So the reason I started thinking about this question is because I was enrolled in a program at UCLA Extension, and I started seeing colleagues with amazing ideas, but they didn't have the financial know-how or the business acumen or the network to actually make it happen. And every time I would hear one of their ideas, I would think, gosh, this is such an amazing idea. I wish we could implement this because it would change and impact so many lives. So that's when my journey as an educator started, because I pitched this new course called Strategic Social Impact. Then I became the first student in the program who became an instructor in the extension program in the sustainability department. So education for me has really been the red thread throughout all of my efforts. But once you work through that challenge you want to focus on, you start looking at a lot of different things. So you start letting go of constraints, you start thinking big, you start thinking about what if, and you fill in the blanks. And once you start finding and defining that purpose, it will keep you moving, it will drive you even when things get tough. And that is where I think the big distinction is between living and working a job that serves a purpose and pays the bills versus even when the tide, gets tough, world gets tough, you are committed, you have a higher vision, you have a bigger purpose, and you're working towards that.
Exactly, because you have that inner fire in you to keep on going, right? Now, so then you find your purpose. So you think you can get some more meaning into your life, but how can you actually start executing on it? Because it's great to find your purpose, and many people find their purpose nowadays. You can find it in books and so on how you can find it, but how can you start living it? Because that's the second point, right? How can you actually start executing on your purpose and live it on a daily basis?
Right. That's a really excellent question. So how do we implement this, right? I always use this quote from one of my close mentors. You can't manage what you can't measure.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to set clear goals, because goals create focus and direction. They offer inspiration. Your goals challenge you to grow, and they drive you to take action. And that's exactly what I encourage everyone to do. So set a goal, make a plan, put it in action and stick to it, and start building habits around it so it becomes part of your daily life. For example, create a 1, 3, and 5-year plan, which I did for my journey in LA. Initially, I had a 1-year plan, then I had a 3-year plan, then I had a 5-year plan. So the goal setting from the get-go is really important. Being patient and also remembering a goal without a plan is just a wish. So I want to help people, eliminate those barriers and turn that wish into an actual plan. So once you have your goal, let's say you're looking to work for a environmental organization in Los Angeles, you start doing your homework, you start doing the research, use a tool like LinkedIn to start researching all the different environmental organizations in your city. Start looking at your network. Start looking if there could be an introduction there. Start looking at programs that can enhance your skills. A lot of times we can enroll in study programs. I understand a lot of us are juggling different commitments. There are a lot of free online courses out there you can take to enhance your skills. But it's really important that once you've committed to that purpose, especially if it's significantly different from your current field, you need to start honing your skills. If it's online courses, if it's doing a volunteer project with one of them, we have some great organizations here. You can do a volunteer project. You can connect with people who are working in this organization, do informational interviews. So the interviews that aren't for necessarily a job application, but more to understand a person's role in a company. It's really a way to pay it forward. So there's no immediate hire or job interview connected to it. And then the third part of this is trial and what I call evolve. So instead of trial and error, look at the equation as trying new things and embracing every learning as an opportunity to grow. A lot of times what happens is we fall into this trap of thinking, well, I gave it a shot. I spoke to this organization. It didn't work out. Maybe this isn't the right thing for me. We start doubting ourselves. We start losing our confidence. We start listening to that little inner noise that says, maybe we weren't as competent. Maybe other people are doing this. There's so much competition. Why should I be the one doing something similar to this, right? So I think a lot of people in the audience also may be familiar with the Dr. Carol Dweck of Stanford University, and she's really known for her research on human motivation. So
Mhm.
she talks about the power of mindset. And I know mindset has become such a buzzword. We hear it on every YouTube video, and every Instagram live, but Dr. Dweck talked about two main mindsets we can navigate life with. So she talks about a growth mindset
Mhm.
and then a fixed mindset. And her theory of the two mindsets and the difference they make in outcomes is incredibly powerful. So in a fixed mindset, you don't like to be challenged, right? You see failure as a limit of your abilities. But if you adopt a growth mindset, you'll find that challenges help you grow and that failure, quote unquote, is an opportunity to grow. So our view of ourselves can determine everything. So another piece of advice I'd give is focus on a growth mindset. Keep going even when it gets tough. And most importantly, don't let the process of getting to your destination rob you from your purpose.
Wow, thank you so much. Now, I think this was a lot of information. And if we then make the kind of the next step, it's like, how can you build confidence within yourself to start having the growth mindset? Like, how can we get rid of all the internal mind chatter that we have, like the things that you mentioned, or the things that I mentioned in the beginning when you want to make a change? Ah, that's never possible for me, or, that's not for me, I'm never going to make it. How can we get rid of that and get into that growth mindset?
Right. So obviously, I'm not a psychologist, but I do believe there's a lot of internal work we need to do. So it's important to get to the root cause of what is holding us back. Is it internal doubt? Is it challenges from the past that define who we are now? Is it the acceptance of our community? Is it the fear of failing? And understanding what is holding you back can help. Maybe it's not on an emotional level, maybe it's related to something more practical like funds. So you can start building a plan, right? If you know you're going to take a leap of faith and you're going to encounter a lot of additional expenses, you can plan ahead and start saving up. So there's the emotional part and the internal work that we need to do to remove those barriers, work on our own inner system, and understand that we have a support system. And even though people may not always agree with the decision, people want their loved ones to be happy, but you need to be 100% committed to that goal. The other part of it is what I call the logistical preparation,
Mhm.
savings, the the moving, the moving journey, all the logistics that need to happen. And then I think the third part of it is, what if none of this works out? What is the worst case scenario?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I started writing out that worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario for me would have been, I move, I don't take anything away from the program, I don't meet any people I can learn anything from, and I resign from a job and I go back and I don't have a job. So that was a pretty gloomy scenario. However, if I didn't try, I wouldn't have known. And nobody can take away your credentials, your past experience, and they can't take away that growth mindset. So I 100% acknowledge that taking a risk like this is is a very big commitment. I had the privilege of doing it. As I mentioned earlier, I think the progression of life and the phase of life I was in, and kind of the acceptance of if I ever have a family, um, this leap may not be an option unless I pack up my bags and take my whole family with me, right?
Yeah.
So these are three elements that I think will definitely help you there. But again, it's no small feat. A lot of people talk about finding your purpose and start living it, and I really want to make sure everyone knows there's a lot of work and preparation and practical skills and just resilience needed to get to that point. So I don't want to portray it as one day you wake up and you have your purpose, and the next thing you know, you start living it. There's a lot of preparation work that needs to be done.
Mm. Yeah, so well said. And that makes me think about, when you moved to LA, what was your biggest challenge in living your purpose when you got there? Can you share that with us?
Of course. So, as I mentioned earlier, the biggest challenge was not having a network or support system. So, when I wanted to find different opportunities and start working in organizations and gather experience, there were a few things I ran into. One part was the personal branding, right? I was not able to really tell my personal story. I hadn't really connected the dots. And for a lot of people you interact with, the decision to pack up your bags and move to the other side of the world is very unknown. So it doesn't necessarily behoove you to not have that personal story crafted. And I know a lot of us don't like to talk about our past experiences, but that was the main challenge for me. So the network and support system that wasn't there. Then there was the personal branding. So you have really no support system locally. So you start learning things from scratch and really basic skills. But, living in a country like the Netherlands, we take public transportation, right? The moment I moved to LA, I had to start driving, and it's such a dispersed hub. So anywhere I needed to go, I needed to drive, and traffic is very different than in other parts of the world. So you're going to be encountering some, what I say, more surface level challenges, things that just day-to-day life you need to learn, from where you get your groceries to how you drive to how you interact with different people and situations, to actually not having a lot of career prospects. So again, the program was a big help, and a big driver. And that's where I think, when I started to focus on education and wanting to give back, I think a big part of it is the program had given me a lot of resources and tools, and I want to continue doing the same.
Wow. I love what you're doing, and I think it's very cool that you're also that you're giving back, and that you're in education now, and that you start lecturing and so on. That makes me think about what you would love to do. Where do you see yourself in 10 years from now?
I love these questions because it's usually me on the other side of the audience asking these questions. So in 10 years from now, I'd love to help entrepreneurs, organizations, any type of organization, whether it's a business or a nonprofit, build out their education programs. So I want to help individuals and organizations build out that social impact. A lot of times we have organizations that are using their business as a force for good, and they're not telling that story. They want to give back, but they don't know how. There's a great movement called the B Corps. They're essentially a type of business that not only focus on the financial bottom line, but also the environmental and social bottom line. So helping the community, helping the environment, and being able to hold their stakeholders accountable for those things. So my future goal would be to work on developing education and training programs for these type of organizations and help them really drive social impact. Again, more than ever, this is something the world needs. Our recent pandemic opened the eyes to a lot of issues we have right now. So I hope that answers your question. I don't have a carefully laid out plan in 10 years from now, maybe 5 years from now. But again, preparation is key, and you never know the next situation you encounter, right? I am now working with a lot of organizations. One nonprofit called Girls in Tech in LA that helps empower women. So gender equality becomes more and more of a topic I'm passionate about. Some of the other mentorship programs I'm a part of, like Women in STEM by the LA Mayor's Office, a lot of nutrition and health companies that are out there that are advancing the world, and obesity and nutrition and health are big topics for me. So I hope that I have the opportunity to educate the masses about these important topics, empower them to make a change. And along the way, obviously, in my personal life, I've now been very blessed with a wonderful husband, a new community and family. And it's been just an absolute privilege. And I don't think I'm the same person you met several years ago when we were at Unilever. So I hope everyone can be lucky enough to find amazing people and just encounter these amazing experiences.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And I really love your mission. And regardless of how that's going to look like, that doesn't really matter. But if you keep, stuck to your mission and you really start living it out, I'm obviously going to follow your work. So I'm really excited about what you're doing. Now, before we wrap up, I would love to ask you one final question. If there's anything else that you would like to share, perhaps.
Right. I think in a nutshell, I want people to take away that once they empower themselves, they can empower others. And I think that's such an important topic that we don't cover a lot in today's society. The focus is really on what is in it for me. So if we give back and pay it forward, um, find the resources to make a difference, we can really have a better world together. So one other thing that I really encourage people to do is not let negativity and the naysayers stop you when you have a carefully laid out plan. Again, a lot of us hear the word no, but preparation is key, mindset is key. So whether you're a student, a working professional, or you're transitioning into a new career, I think hopefully at least one of the takeaways from today's podcast can be useful to anyone in different stages of their life. And there's one takeaway, I hope it's that you have the power to empower yourself.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing this. Now, guys, before you go, I want you to know that Misha, you can reach Misha on her LinkedIn profile that I will drop in the comments below, and she will also offer you a freebie, which is a free coaching call to empower yourself to drive social impact. So, if you want to, please connect with her, do it, go to her LinkedIn profile, and then, of course, Misha, I really want to thank you for all the insights that you shared in this interview with me, with my audience. I really liked it. Obviously, I'm going to follow your work, and then I hope to meet you soon in person again.
I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much for doing this amazing podcast, asking all the right questions, and encouraging people to be the best version of themselves. It's great to connect, and I hope to welcome you and your lovely wife again in LA. I know we have a surprise encounter at the airport as we were both traveling from Amsterdam to LA. So I hope we can create many more of those moments.
Absolutely. I totally forgot that, by the way. I could have mentioned that earlier, but like 2 years ago, I was flying to a Tony Robbins event in LA, from Amsterdam to LA, and we got on the same plane somehow, right? Like you got back from LA to the Netherlands after like 5 years or so.
And I was sitting with my husband in the plane, and I said, these are my Unilever colleagues from 6 years ago. And it was just incredible. Like it's such a small world. I mean, they talk about 6 degrees of separation and all of that, but also just you visiting LA and attending that Tony Robbins conference. A lot of his thoughts and his talks have had a profound impact on me. So it's really interesting how we both just ran into each other, but then also are, I would say, in the same line of work, which is again privilege to just empower others. So please keep doing what you're doing, and thanks again.
Thank you, Misha. I'd love to see you back soon. Cheers.
Cheers.